All right, we're back with this 65 Deluxe Reverb reissue that you've seen two previous videos on. Last video was a speaker comparison between the stock speaker and a bunch of others. The link in the description is below. And of those speakers, the owner chose the Avatar A50, which I'm going to show the installation of right now, and then we'll get back and let you hear it. Okay, it's time to change out that old Eminence speaker. We're also going to replace this plastic cable with a molded plug because these fail a lot in the reissues and the blues and the hot rods. And that's the original speaker. A lot of Fenders in the 90s have these. And Eminence makes a lot of great speakers. This is not one of them. All right, old speaker out. Before I put the new one in, I want to make sure that all the screws holding the baffle in place are really tight. These vibrate loose with time because it is a screw into wood, and as the seasons change and that wood expands and contracts both in the baffle and the cabinet, things just come a little bit loose. And it's a little bit easier to get these really tight when the speaker's out because there's less weight fighting against you. So it is certainly possible to tighten them with the speaker in place. I got a little flap here. I'm out of staples, otherwise I just give it a staple. But what I will do is get in here with some tight bond. Just tight bond 2. And I press it in place, it smooths it all out everywhere. Then I'll take some paper towel and just kind of get all the squeeze out. This is a hidden part once the amp is assembled, so I don't have to be as critical. But this stuff wipes up really well before it sets with water, and it's real easy to get all the squeeze out to be invisible. If this were something that would be visible when the amp is, if this were an external thing, I'd be even more careful. A little bit of squeeze out won't hurt anything. And then that flap of vinyl won't interfere with the chassis going in and out. And that little bit of painter's tape will help it hold in place while the glue sets. In about an hour, I can take that off. All right, a new Switchcraft plug, all soldered. 2 things of heat shrink there just to reinforce that area so that when this is clamped together, it really grabs the cable there. You know, it's hard to take pictures of shiny things, but you can see this is a good quality soldering job. The screws are in there good and tight, and I put a little bit of clear nail polish on them to keep them from having any vibrational tendencies to come loose. Normally I'd use blue Loctite, but my tube of blue Loctite exploded in an unholy mess, so clear nail polish will do the job for this. Now, I've not used an Avatar speaker before, so one of the things I need to check, based on my experience with Eminences, is to make sure that these are tinned and will accept solder. Most speakers have these tinned and will accept solder very easily. Eminences, or at least many of them, you have to scuff them and really get a coating off before it'll accept solder. So let me see how this does. I can't do this on camera just because there's no way I can set the tripod up to capture this. But I'm happy to report these tinned just fine, no issues at all. So let me start this. You can see I've got the tips tinned and the rest of it not tinned. That way I can bend it without it splaying out and having loose wires go every direction. All right, you can see the crimps before I solder everything. So there's good mechanical support, not just solder. That is so crucial. Okay, all soldered and beautiful. I'll remove the cloth now. Even those of us who are quite good at soldering cannot control if there were to be a drop or a spatter of flux or anything. So I like to protect the paper cone like that. Okay, new speaker in place, ready to go into service. I've got the new reverb tank installed, but I'm not going to screw the bag down and put the rear panel in place until I confirm that the red and white, which go to the chassis connections, which are labeled red and white, match the orientation in here, because there are red and white in here. And I don't recall, because this came in with a totally dead tank, whether this is the correct orientation at the chassis end. I may need to reverse it in the bag, because I'd rather have it reversed in the bag and have the owner have the white and red connect as expected. Just makes it simpler for the user. So let's put all this back together and see how it sounds. All right, everything's back in place, and the reverb tank polarity was correct. Before I get into what the speaker really sounds like, I want to show why I need to change the reverb pot in this amp. With the reverb on 1.5, that's the amount of reverb, and it shuts off. Almost, doesn't completely shut off. So 1.5 is like 4 on most. So that pot needs to be changed out. And for some of this, I'll be turning the reverb off entirely. But here's some basic Strat stuff to compare it to the previous video. So this is the very slightly modified Deluxe reverb. As you can see in the previous video, aside from the filter caps and the reliability upgrades, the only real sonic change is the removal of the bright cap, putting in a reverb tank that works, and this A50 speaker. Real quick, it's not the new reverb tank that's making this have a problem. This is a problem with this potentiometer. That's no big deal. As you can hear, even without that bright cap, the amp is plenty bright. I've got this treble and bass at noon, at 5.5 on this. The speaker is really bright. It's right out of the box. It will warm up over the coming weeks of playing. For right now, I'm going to turn this treble down to just under 5. See if that's a little more balanced. The other A50 that this was played to in the previous video is many, many months or years old, so it's broken in. This will get less bright. The repair tag was buzzing. Doesn't quite have the low end that the ET65 or the G12C would have had. Just a second, it's vibrating against the guitar stand. So it has a good amount of low end. It's just not a really strong, in-your-face low end. And in a band context, that can be great. And I'm going to get to why the owner might really prefer that. Sounds really nice with the Strat. Let me show you what the owner really wants to do with this thing. Let's see if I can do this without retuning the guitar. So this is SG straight into a dimed, almost dimed Deluxe. I've got the volume just below 9. Treble and bass at noon still. Reverb at 0. This speaker likes to be here. I don't play a lot of Stones. I don't play a lot of Black Crowes. I really like listening to that stuff, but I've just not ever learned the songs. He said he loved the Black Crowes. I gave that song, which I have always liked, a couple listens, and that's my guesstimate is how it goes. So anyway, I think the amp is sounding really good. This is showing me two things. Number one, that this volume pot needs to be changed out. It's got a little bit of a scratchiness when signal is going through it. It's a 30-year-old pot. Time to change that. So new volume pot, new reverb pot coming. But even with this SG, the clean stuff is kind of nice. Just that reverb wants to drown out everything. Anyway, I think we're $2, $3 pots away from a fantastic sounding Deluxe reverb. So I hope the owner is very happy.